downtown London, it's The Pulse with Devon Peacock. Now your host, Devon Peacock.
There are some stories that, they just make you shake your head, and this next one is one of them. A spokesperson for Tim Hortons says they will be reviewing their policy on handling emergencies after a teenage boy suffered an asthma attack at a Tim Hortons just south of downtown. This happened Sunday afternoon at a location to Horton Street East at Wellington. And a London woman who witnessed the ordeal says the Tim Hortons employees there did nothing to help the teen when he was in medical distress. Kaylee Sproat is her name. She noticed the 17-year-old pacing between tills, trying to get a cashier's attention. Sproat says the boy was visibly having a hard time breathing, but managed to get out the words phone and help. The employee told him the phone isn't for customer use and mentioned there's a payphone across the street at the variety store. Sproat then asked him if he wanted her to call 911. He nodded. She then learned he has severe asthma and his emergency inhalers weren't working. She stayed with him until EMS arrived, and she says even then the employees did nothing. Now, I've seen people comment that a company or employee should not help because they could open themselves to liability concerns if they do when something goes wrong, which really is a sad commentary on life. It also says nothing of the fact, what if something went terribly wrong and a customer wasn't there to help out? But this conversation shouldn't be about liability or fear of it. It's not like asthma is rare. It's pretty common. If a company doesn't know what to do, they should. To discuss that and more, we're now joined by Elizabeth Goldenberg. She's a lawyer and asthma allergy safety expert with Onespot Allergy. Joins us now on the program. Thanks for your time today.
My pleasure.
Well, I think by now many people or most people have heard the story that happened at Tim Hortons on Sunday. Tim Hortons has commented saying they're going to review their policy on handling emergencies after this asthma attack. I guess it's just surprising for many that there wasn't a policy in place already, because it shouldn't be a surprise that there would be an asthma attack in a restaurant in London or any city.
Absolutely not. It should not be a surprise at all. This is an accident waiting to happen. A tremendous number of the population have asthma. 8% of the population has food allergies, and I'd say this is a huge wake-up call for Tim Hortons to become prepared to respond to an asthmatic or allergic reaction. And the two can feel very much the same.
This young man had severe asthma. Do you know what? Can you explain, I guess, the difference between asthma and then severe asthma?
Absolutely. I mean, severe asthma is asthma that's uncontrolled, that severe attacks can flare up at any time, seemingly unprovoked. They require rescue within minutes. Calling 911 is not enough. The rescue inhalers can fail, and you need to respond with first aid. And first aid is care given in the time that elapses before you arrive at the emergency department. It's treatment before or during transport to an emergency department. So severe asthma requires that. Having said that, I'm always suspicious when someone has an asthma attack, severe asthma attack, while eating or right after eating. It's often a food allergic reaction, and they feel exactly the same. So someone will say, it's my asthma acting up, my inhalers aren't working. And what you need to be trained to understand is that requires an emergency response, which is actually the same response that you would use for a food allergic reaction. You would actually give someone the EpiPen. If their asthma inhalers aren't working, the EpiPen is the first aid that you provide. And the telltale sign in this case is that this young man's inhalers weren't working. So I'm unclear in my mind if it was simply asthma or if it was an asthma attack by a food allergic reaction. But in any event, the rescue would have been the same. Both events can quickly lead to death.
And anyone who does have, severe asthma or just asthma, I guess in general, would be carrying around that EpiPen as well, right? In addition,
well, a lot of people don't know with asthma that an EpiPen was the first line treatment for it. Before the puffers came out, you would use an EpiPen for your rescue. Now they try to control asthma and deal with emergencies with these inhaled medications, but the EpiPen still works. So if this person had food allergies, he should have had an EpiPen with him. A lot of people don't, even though they are diagnosed. People with asthma less frequently would be carrying that medication, but it is available in something called Epi kits. And again, it's a huge wake-up call for food service industries to say, we're providing food. Our food contains, understandably, most of the top allergens. 8% of people are allergic. A large number of people are asthmatic. We need allergy and asthma first aid training. We need to recognize when a person is in that sort of distress, that someone can't breathe or someone's experiencing other symptoms of a reaction. We need to know that this requires a response from us. Even before calling 911, that's when you would inject the EpiPen. And we need to have epinephrine available in these places. You can buy Epi kits. There's a site called epikit.com that sells them. There is allergy and asthma first aid training at Epicenter Medical. It's different than the first aid training that St. John's Ambulance provides, where you learn how to do a splint. And, they might touch on the EpiPen, they might not. But the training at Epicenter Medical is much more specialized. This is going to happen again. I mean, this boy was just 17 years old. He did what I would tell my son to do. He went to the staff for help. He was ignored. He was asked for the phone. He was told to go across the street to use the phone. And he could have died on the way. I've heard some... Pardon?
No, continue. Please go on.
Well, I heard some commentary about the location of the Tim Hortons, and, it's understandable because it was at Wellington and Horton that the staff were non-responsive because they've had security issues there. It's a 17-year-old person, right? I mean, I guess that Tim Hortons is near the Salvation Army, but there's no reason to assume this person looks threatening or this person looked like he was on drugs or anything like that. He's 17 years old. That's when our kids start to venture out and experience the world and go out with their friends and do things like that. I would have put my son in that same situation, and he has life-threatening food allergies, no asthma. And I would have told him, if he has a problem, go to the staff to ask for help. He did that. This person did that. At 3 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon. It's not 3 in the morning on a Saturday, or Sunday morning, I should say, where people might have been rowdy. I don't think there was any reason for the staff to have felt threatened or insecure. A female bystander in line felt secure enough to ask him what's wrong, quickly learned from him that he has severe asthma and his inhalers weren't working. She cared enough to call 911. Surely the staff should have done so. In my opinion, it's simply inhumane not to help someone in trouble. The staff should have called 911 for him instead of telling him to go across the street. That could have been the walk of death.
Yeah, I've seen some comment as well of people saying, well, if you help out and maybe you make a mistake along the way, then maybe you're liable, which doesn't make sense to me, because if you don't help, you could also be liable. So that whole argument doesn't really make sense to me.
Absolutely. I mean, so Tim Hortons is having a little bit of a PR issue right now. They are extremely lucky that all they're having is a little bit of a PR issue right now. I mean, I'm not only an allergy and asthma safety expert, I'm a lawyer. And that young man could have died on their premises. Luckily, he did not. The next person could if they remain unprepared. If they don't stock Epi kits, if they don't get allergy and asthma first aid training, it's an accident waiting to happen. There are good Samaritan laws in every province that will protect you. You know, if you're trying to assist someone in an emergency and somehow you do harm, you will not be liable. But the other thing is, as a lawyer, I can tell you to get sued, you need to have a case against you. The first thing is that you were at fault. You know, it was wrong for you to try to assist. It was wrong for you to, try to rescue this person with an EpiPen or with whatever first aid you did. So you were at fault. The second thing that has to be proven is that you caused a loss. Something bad happened to this person because of your efforts to help. That will never happen. In my opinion, this young boy should have received an immediate injection of epinephrine. He said his asthma inhalers weren't working. He should have been laid down with his feet up and comforted, monitored until emergency crews arrived. You can't cause harm doing that for somebody, even if it proves to be unnecessary. If I give you an injection, because you seem to be in stress, but it turned out to be something else, I can't cause harm to you. It's like giving you a very strong cup of coffee. It's a jolt of adrenaline. The third thing that has to be proven after fault and causation is damages. So no one would have suffered any damages. The risk of damages here is when the next person dies. And as I say, I believe it is a very strong wake-up call that they really need to do online allergy and asthma first aid training. They can go to epicentermedical.com for specialized training. As remedial action, I submit it would be very appropriate that they train all their staff to recognize and respond appropriately when the next incident happens, and one will happen. It's inevitable.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's asthma. It's not exactly an uncommon thing for someone to have, or as you say, with food allergies, sometimes people don't even know they're allergic to something, and it comes out, and you have to deal with it.
Absolutely. I mean, a quarter of the allergic reactions that require first aid treatment and emergency treatment, they came completely out of the blue. I mean, they just walked in your door, and the person didn't know that they were in an at-risk group. It's going to happen in food services establishments, and thankfully this time it happened despite the neglect. The patient lived, the victim lived. And we can use this as a wake-up call to make things safer for others in this situation and to protect the owners of these establishments from the lawsuits that could follow.
Indeed. Elizabeth, I appreciate your time today. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
That is Elizabeth Goldenberg. Again, she's a lawyer and asthma allergy safety expert with Onespot Allergy.